Today, I have brought you 10 normal photos with creepy backstories. Naturally, when we look at a photo, it seems very normal or ordinary to us. But that is not always the case. Sometimes a photo hides a mysterious backstory, or a truth so chilling that it might even stop you from going to the bathroom at night. And if you've been watching my videos, then you already know I love to scare you. So once again, I've brought you 10 normal photos with creepy backstories. So grab your headphones, get some snacks, and enjoy. At first glance, these photographs might look like simple city views, nothing more than ordinary streets and buildings. But when you look closer, you realize they capture one of the darkest chapters in human history. This is Hiroshima, shown before and after August 6, 1945. Nothing but ashes, ruins, and shadows burned into the ground. On August 6, 1945, a single atomic bomb erased nearly 140,000 lives in an instant. This is one that always stuck with me, just the way you have this bustling city in one frame and the same city scythed clean with nuclear fire in the next. It's hard to imagine that level of devastation. A blast that burned civilians into the pavement and left shadows that would still be there decades later. The terrifying part? People standing in the sun that morning left only their shadows on the walls, forever imprinted by the blinding heat. This photo may seem normal at first, but once you know the truth, it's impossible to look at it the same way again. At first, this photo looks so normal, a crowded shopping mall, people walking with their children. But if you look closely, you'll notice a tiny boy, James Bulger, just 2 years old, holding the hand of another child. It seems innocent, but here's the chilling truth. That child he's holding hands with was not his brother, not his friend. They were two 10-year-old boys who had just kidnapped him. The date was February 12, 1993. It was a normal Friday afternoon in Bootle, England. Two young boys, Robert Thompson and John Venables, were skipping school, wandering the streets, planning to cause trouble. At just 10 years old, they had already developed disturbing tendencies. Inside the New Strand shopping center, they spotted their victim, James Bulger. Only 2 years old, had briefly wandered away from his mother while she was distracted in a butcher's shop. And in those few seconds, his fate was sealed. Thompson and Venables approached James, lured him away, and led him out of the mall. Dozens of people saw the three of them walking together, but everyone assumed the older boys were his brothers. Nobody realized that a kidnapping was unfolding in broad daylight. For more than 2 miles, the boys walked James across busy streets and neighborhoods. Along the way, witnesses later reported seeing James crying, stumbling, even getting his face bruised, but still no one intervened. Finally, they led him to a secluded railway line, and here the nightmare reached its peak. The boys tortured the toddler in ways too brutal to fully comprehend. They threw stones and bricks at him, splashed blue paint into his eyes, and struck him repeatedly with an iron bar. In the end, they left his lifeless body on the railway tracks, hoping a passing train would destroy the evidence. 2 days later, James's body was discovered. The nation was horrified. Two 10-year-old children had committed one of the most shocking murders in British history. At first glance, this photo looks so normal. A young man sitting outside, smiling casually at the camera. The woods behind him, his van and equipment beside him. It almost looks like he's simply enjoying a camping trip. But the man in this photo is David A. Johnston, a 30-year-old volcanologist working for the U.S. Geological Survey. His mission was dangerous but vital, studying the restless giant, Mount St. Helens, in Washington state. In the spring of 1980, the mountain had been rumbling for weeks. Small earthquakes, steam explosions, and a bulging north side warned scientists that something catastrophic was coming. And David was stationed closest of all, just 6 miles from the summit. He spent weeks camping in this very spot, recording data, measuring tremors, and reporting back. To the outside world, it seemed calm, but he knew the mountain was ready to blow. Then came May 18, 1980. At exactly 8:32 a.m., the largest landslide in recorded history shook the ground. A massive eruption tore through the mountain, releasing more energy than hundreds of atomic bombs. A wall of fire, ash, and molten rock ripped across the landscape at over 600 miles per hour. And in those terrifying final moments, David's calm voice echoed across the radio. "Vancouver, Vancouver, this is it." Those were his last words. Moments later, the pyroclastic blast hit his observation post. He never had a chance to escape. His body was never recovered, buried under miles of ash and volcanic rock. The eruption killed 57 people, destroyed 200 homes, and leveled over 200 square miles of forest. But thanks to scientists like David Johnston, who risked their lives monitoring the volcano, thousands more were evacuated and saved. At first, this photo looks perfectly normal. Two scuba divers exploring the ocean, something thousands of tourists do every year. But this image hides a chilling story. The diver in this picture is Tina Watson, a 26-year-old newlywed, enjoying her honeymoon in Australia's Great Barrier Reef in October 2003. Just minutes after this photograph was taken, Tina would be dead. She had gone diving with her husband, Gabe Watson. But instead of helping her, Gabe later admitted that he let her struggle underwater. A few minutes before this photo, her husband turned off her air supply and held her underwater until she drowned. He then went up to the surface and told the other divers she was in trouble, and you can see someone else swimming to try and save her. Witnesses claimed they saw him suddenly swimming away while Tina sank helplessly to the ocean floor. Her lifeless body was found lying in the sand, only 11 meters below the surface. At first, it was called a tragic accident, but soon investigators discovered something darker. Gabe Watson had recently taken out a life insurance policy on his new wife, one that would have paid him a large sum if she died. Though he denied intentionally killing her, his strange behavior and shifting stories made the case one of the most haunting true crime mysteries of modern times. Also, the manslaughter charge managed to stick because despite apparently being a trained rescue diver, he made no evident effort to save her or share his own functioning tank. Also, one witness says he saw Gabe Watson engaged in a bear hug with his flailing wife. At first glance, this might look like nothing more than a simple family photograph. A little girl smiling, her mother and grandmother posing happily on New Year's Day. But hidden in the corner of the frame is something far more chilling. A man aiming a gun directly at the camera. The person taking this picture was Ronaldo Dagsa, a Filipino politician and councilman. He was celebrating the new year with his family in Caloocan City, Philippines, on January 1st, 2011. Like any father, he wanted to capture a happy memory. But what he didn't realize was that at the very moment he pressed the shutter, his assassin was standing just a few feet away, ready to end his life. In a split second after this picture was taken, the gunman pulled the trigger. The flash of the camera captured not only his family's joy, but also the exact moment his killer took aim. Ronaldo was shot in front of his wife, his daughter, and his mother-in-law. The very people he was trying to photograph became witnesses to his final moments alive. People say the cameraman never dies, but here, he did. This photograph may look normal at first glance, just a man sitting in his bathtub. But behind this simple image lies one of the most chilling true crime stories of the 2000s. The man in this photo is Travis Alexander, a 30-year-old motivational speaker from Arizona. On the surface, his life seemed perfect. He was successful, well-liked, and known for his positive energy. But his private life was far more complicated. Travis had been in a stormy, toxic relationship with a woman named Jodi Arias. Their romance started passionately, but it quickly turned dark. Friends of Travis later revealed that he wanted to break free from Jodi, calling her obsessive and dangerous. On June 4th, 2008, Jodi visited Travis at his home. They spent the day together, taking pictures, some innocent, some intimate, and then this photo was taken. What makes it terrifying is that minutes after this exact picture, Travis would be attacked in a brutal way. A picture of a guy looking uncomfortable or upset in the shower. In reality, that's Travis Alexander, and the picture was taken by Jodi Arias shortly before she murdered him by stabbing him dozens of times and slitting his throat. Jodi stabbed him 27 times, slit his throat from ear to ear, and finally shot him in the head. Investigators later discovered the images on Travis's camera, showing his last moments alive, proof of a premeditated murder. At first glance, this picture seems calm and almost beautiful. A man kneeling in the grass, speaking to the camera with a massive grizzly bear grazing peacefully in the background. But this isn't just a random nature shot. This is Timothy Treadwell, a man who would later be remembered as the Grizzly Man. Timothy wasn't a scientist. In fact, he had struggled in life for years, battling depression, alcoholism, and even drug addiction. But then he claimed he had found his true purpose, protecting wild bears in Alaska. He reinvented himself completely, devoting his life to living among them in Katmai National Park. For 13 summers in a row, Timothy camped inside bear territory, often just meters away from animals that could kill him in seconds. He filmed countless hours of footage speaking to the camera as if the bears were his friends. He gave them names, played with them, and believed he had gained their trust. To his supporters, he was brave and passionate, but to wildlife experts, he was reckless, crossing every line of safety. They warned him again and again. Grizzly bears are unpredictable predators, and no matter how much time he spent with them, he was never truly safe. But Timothy ignored the warnings. He believed he had a special connection, almost spiritual. In his eyes, the bears were not killers, but misunderstood companions. And then came October 2003. Timothy and his girlfriend Amy Huguenot were camping deep in the park. It was late in the season. Most bears had already eaten enough and gone into hibernation. But starving and aggressive bears still roamed the area. On October 5th, one such hungry bear entered their camp. What happened next was beyond horrifying. Timothy's video camera, though the lens cap was on, recorded the audio of the entire attack. For 6 long minutes, the microphone captured Timothy's desperate screams as he was mauled and torn apart. Amy tried to fight the bear, hitting it with a frying pan, before she too was killed. Park rangers later found the remains of both Timothy and Amy. They also discovered the camera with the chilling audio inside. That tape has never been released to the public, but those who have heard it describe it as one of the most disturbing recordings in existence. At first, this looks like nothing more than a funny old picture. 2 teenagers smiling at the camera, their hair standing straight up as if touched by static electricity. But what you're actually seeing here is something terrifying. This photo was taken at Sequoia National Park in California in 1975. The strange hair wasn't caused by static, but by a deadly buildup of electrical energy in the air moments before a lightning strike. The boys were standing on top of Morro Rock, a granite dome known for sudden storms. When a thundercloud forms overhead, the electric field can make your hair rise like this. It's nature's warning sign. Lightning is about to strike. The photographer snapped the shot, thinking it looked funny. But seconds later, lightning struck the rock. The boys were thrown violently to the ground. One of them, a boy named Michael McQuilkin, survived but suffered severe burns. Tragically, another person nearby died instantly. What you are looking at right now doesn't look too terrifying at first. It almost resembles a melted piece of concrete or maybe a pile of dried mud. This is the infamous elephant's foot, buried deep inside the ruins of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. In April 1986, reactor number 4 exploded in one of the worst nuclear disasters in history. The explosion released unimaginable amounts of radioactive material into the air, poisoning the land, the water, and the people for generations to come. As the reactor melted down, the superheated nuclear fuel mixed with molten concrete, steel, and sand. All of that fused together into this nightmarish formation, a solid mass of highly radioactive lava forever frozen in time. The elephant's foot was discovered several months later. At that time, the radiation it emitted was so powerful, standing next to it for just 30 seconds could cause dizziness and vomiting. A full minute, and you were guaranteed radiation sickness. 2 minutes, and your cells would start breaking apart. Within 5 minutes, death was inevitable. Even the photo you see here came at a terrible cost. The man in the picture wore a protective suit, yet his exposure was still dangerously high. Early attempts to photograph it even destroyed cameras because the radiation burned straight through the film. Today, decades later, the elephant's foot is far less deadly than before, but it is still radioactive, and it will remain so for thousands of years. To me, it will be this one of the Iroquois Theater fire. You can see smoke pouring from inside the glass. When this photo was taken, around 600 people were trapped inside the building in pitch darkness, whilst a fire incinerated or smoke asphyxiated them one by one. The story: in 1903, a fireproof theater opened in Chicago, Illinois, and proceeded to host a play called Bluebeard. Around 600 people attended, but midway through the performance, it is believed that an old arc light shorted out and caused one of the stage curtains to set alight. The theater was not equipped with fire extinguishers, but rather a fire extinguishing powder which was inadequate. The fire spread to other curtains, and a fireproof curtain was lowered, but snagged halfway down on a light. In panic, one of the stage employees opened a back door to the theater, causing a backdraft of air to enter. turning the fire into a fireball that blasted out into the seating area and incinerated hundreds. Some people in the upper seating areas had left the playroom. However, they became trapped in the narrow corridors due to the fact that some of the non-opening windows into the vestibule resembled doors, and some of the proper doors used an Espagnolette bascule lock, an old French lock that most Americans had no idea how to manipulate. As a result, people began piling up at these doors because the poor people at the front had no idea how to open them. It is likely they were crushed to death. Okay guys, that's the end of today's video. These were 10 normal-looking photos with really creepy backstories. I hope you enjoyed it. Tell me in the comments which story you liked the most. And if you've ever experienced something that seemed normal at first but actually wasn't, share it with me. If I find it interesting, I might even feature it in one of my future videos to share with all of you. Alright, that's it for today. See you in the next video.